Hello. girl you are, yeah. Such a good girl, yeah. You're such a good little girl, yes you are. Yes you are. So hi guys, welcome to live stream. Let me turn chat off. Welcome to the live stream. So I heard people complaining that I was, or not complaining, but saying that I was sleeping. I'm not sleeping, I'm just sitting here and just letting life happen, or just letting everything happen. Something that our society never does. So I'm just sitting, just sitting. Not for any purpose, not to meditate, to get anywhere, just sitting. Just letting the sensations be there, the thoughts be there, the feelings be there. And I love to do this, and I recommend to anyone that's listening to spend some time doing it. Knowing that the one that thinks it chooses to do it is just a functioning and not a chooser. Because what have we got to get in this life? What are you peddling to try and get to? More money, more success, more control, more happiness. And all you have is what's happening. You don't have any of that. You only have this. You're never going to get there. You're never going to arrive at that. You don't need to be all the things that you believe you need to be. You just need to be. My friend once said to me when he was really ill, or dying in fact, he said, I always thought that I was a human doer, and now I realised I'm a human being. You just need to be. Nothing more. There's no mission. The mission is just to be yourself, just to be the perfect expression of yourself. Which is what's happening. So sometimes people come to non-duality and they've been through different things. So sometimes the time we've gone to non-duality, you've been through lots of spirituality, lots of meditation, lots of emotional release. And then what you get out of non-duality is seeing that all of that's irrelevant, because it's not that you shouldn't have done it, but it's irrelevant because there is no you that's going to arrive somewhere. That you that did all that believing it's going to arrive doesn't exist. There's only what's happening. And that can be great relief from that perspective. And it normally means if the person's done lots of things like that, then it's fairly balanced. Then there can be people that never do any of that sort of stuff and just straight away get into non-duality, and then they become addicted to using non-duality as another weapon for the person. And it doesn't settle the person, it just becomes another clothing for the person. Like it's like the person is too busy to hear it and just takes it on as another layer. So one teacher I used to like said, when you listen to me, you shouldn't leave the room with anything. If you leave the room with something, then you've missed what I've been saying. So it's hard when you're speaking about non-duality. You kind of have to really speak to the person you're speaking to, because people come from different angles. And sometimes it's appropriate to talk about with someone that there is no doer and there's nobody here. And sometimes it's important to say to someone there is a doer, and you have to put some effort into relaxing the person. Or it seems like there's a doer, so use that doer to relax the person. Because otherwise they just escape into there is nobody. It just becomes the next thing. So it's beautiful just sitting. If you think it's a waste of time, then you're not hearing what I'm speaking of. This isn't about getting somewhere. This is about what's happening. It's not about being entertained. It's not about the mind getting something. It's about what's happening. The breath, the sight, the feeling, the sensations, the sights, the thoughts, the feelings. It's about what's appearing now. The separate self believes it exists in time. You arrived in this room and that you're going into the future, and it's constantly on a mission in that timeline, and it's missing what's happening. It's not even the person's missing what's happening, it's covering what's happening. Person doesn't exist, and it's always on its mission to be something. And normally it's on its mission to be something so it can be loved. And you're never going to get love in time. You get pain and pleasure, and more than likely you'll get disappointed because you won't be able to achieve that love in time. Love, true love, is only ever present. It's only ever here. And you can't hold love. You can't make it happen. You can't force it. So today I feel like speaking to people, so if, rather than reading questions, so if somebody wants to call in and work on something, they're very welcome. They can even ask, you can either ask about non-duality, or you can ask a specific question about something that's happened in time. But just be aware that when you call in, to kind of already have a sense of what you want to work on. Sometimes people say they call in for a chat, which is nice, but it's maybe better for another time. It's better if you've got something very specific that you want to work on. So it might be something in time, like for the person, that the person keeps getting stuck on, like a feeling or a thought process, or it might be something about non-duality, that there is nobody here, that life is happening. Oh yeah, and I forgot to do my advertisements, so I will do them now. Very important advertisements. This is the only place I advertise. I do a mail out, but I don't to emails that have subscribed on my website. So you can subscribe to those emails by going to my website. But this is the only other place I advertise. As you guys are obviously interested in what I do. So okay, so I've only got one event coming up. So my next event is the 4th to the 13th of November, and that's in Canar, the south of Spain. It's a really beautiful location in the mountains behind Malaga, so inland, sort of behind Malaga and near Granada, and it's up quite high. It's very beautiful. And that you can either do 7 days or 10 days. And you can either be in a dorm room, a double room, or a single room. And if you are wealthy or you have extra money, then you can always sponsor someone to come on the retreat. There's one person that's got full sponsorship, and there's a little bit of money for another person, but not enough. So you can always write to the organizer about sponsoring, which is really beautiful. I really like this venue. I keep going back there. It's the only place at the moment where I really am doing retreats. I did one in the south of France, these bigger retreats. And what I like about it is it's very simple. It's an eco place. I like the simplicity of it. I personally am not so much into the grand, extravagant places. So it's very simple. Like some of the places, some of the accommodation is like wooden huts, and it's all off-grid. So it's all solar panels, and they try to grow a lot of their food, or they only locally source their food. I like all these sorts of things, rather than something that's very materialistic. And I also like it that they try to be really fairly priced as well. All these things I like to promote, rather than this very extravagant luxury. Not that there's anything wrong with that ultimately, but in the relative world it's just not something I'm so into. I can be every so often, have an extravagant night at a spa hotel I like sometimes. I do like spas. There was this retreat centre that I was going to go to in America, but I'm very lazy with travelling, which was a spa, but it was a natural spa. So it was all outdoor spas that were heated by the volcanoes under the earth. I like that. Hey Julio, can you hear me? Yeah, you're super quiet as well. Just 1 second. I can maybe increase the volume here. Is it still echoing? No? Oh, good. Because I can't put microphones in, but you're very quiet. I don't know why.
Hold on. I need to stop the YouTube. Is that better?
No, it's not. Just let me see if I can adjust the sound on my side. No, it's max.
Can you hear me any better now?
Yeah, that's a bit better.
Okay, if I speak a bit louder.
Yeah. Hey, I have to, it's a bit confusing because I kind of have to not look down too much, like, otherwise I'm like, you can't see it.
All right. Okay.
But I look at you, but how are you, Julia?
Fine, a little nervous and a bit hungover from the horrible weekend.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening here in Catalonia. So,
has it stopped now?
well, today is kind of. Yesterday there was a huge strike, and actually we closed the roads into Catalonia, not letting any goods in or out.
Who, the Spanish?
The Catalans. They just brought pretty much the whole country, or most of the country, to a halt, except big industry, in protest against the violence on Sunday. And now we're just waiting for the Catalan government to see what they're going to do, whether they're going to declare independence or not.
Wow.
And the voices we hear from the Spanish executive are threatening to do whatever it takes to get Catalonia back in line. So they're not happy times.
Yeah, wow. Intense. Yeah, what a weekend.
Truly, yeah, you were here at a very emotional time.
Yeah, but I saw nothing. I really just stayed at the house, so I wasn't a part of any of it. I just heard from people.
Sure, I can't help being part of. Well, I suppose I could ignore it, but so many of my friends and my daughter's a real dyed-in-the-wool separatist. She really wants to leave.
Yeah.
She's 20, so
yeah.
I'm involved.
No, but I meant like I didn't see anything. Like I didn't see anything. Like I was very I stayed purposely inside on Sunday.
Right. If you'd gotten into that, you wouldn't have been much good.
Yeah. So I just stayed away. I think I just walked Khaleesi and that was it.
Okay.
So when we spoke the other day, but the thing is I don't really have a very great memory. But when we texted on and off last week, I just felt like there was something not in line. But this is my feeling, like there's something not in line. And if you don't want to explore it, that's okay. But just if you want to explore it, we can. And it's no way meaning to say that there's something wrong with you. It's just exploring what the current experience is and seeing what's not true. But that's not meant to imply that there's anything wrong. And it doesn't imply either also that I'm right. I just go with what comes up. Like it's just thoughts and feelings come up, and often they can be accurate, but they sometimes cannot as well.
Sure, there's a level of trust here towards you which I can't shake.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'd be willing to explore anything. I can't really put my finger on any particular thing. I'm quite comfortable with my experience as it's unfolding now. In other words, I am not attempting to change it in any way. The emotions and the thoughts that are coming up are completely acceptable because they belong to this process that's unfolding. I don't find any resistance against it. Which is new for me. it's a recent development. It's only been, I suppose, a month and a half or two. And, but yes, I'd be willing to explore anything which we could maybe find together. I'm very maybe interested in understanding or looking at how I could be deceiving myself that everything is okay.
But the thing is what normally happens is we pulse in and out. So like everything can be okay, and then something comes, and then we pulse in and out of being okay, or we pulse in and out of like more expansion and less expansion. Like we feel more expanded and integrated in what we'd define as happy, and then we find something comes, and then we feel less.
That really doesn't upset me at all now. I'm very used to how this person, this character, has these movements, and they don't make me uncomfortable anymore. I don't desire much to be out of any state that I find myself in. If I do feel contracted and closed and down, that's just what's happening for me. I don't try and fight against it. It's like I'm comfortable with. There's a level of conformity with what is happening, and I don't find my God, I shouldn't be in this state. I wish I was in a more expansive, loving state. I don't find that anymore.
Yeah. And what do you feel in your body right now?
I suppose a little bit of nervousness in the stomach. It's the first time I've spoken on Skype, but I think it comes from that because the nervousness entered when I was preparing to speak with you. But it's settling, it's dissipating.
Yeah. Then I don't know if there is anything to work through today. Like on for Sunday, I felt like, or Saturday, whenever it was, I felt like there was juice. But if it doesn't come now, it doesn't come now.
I think it was the fruit of being watched by everyone else and trying not. Well, actually, there wasn't an attempt to block them, but there was an attempt to keep my mind on what I was trying to say. And obviously, it was spontaneous reaction to your words, which afterwards I would have maybe have not, after thinking about it on the way home, I would maybe have not been so quick to counter your words with arguments rather than allow them to sink in and let them go through. But yes, you know, I was curious about your saying that I was angry with God. Yes.
Oh yeah, do you know this did just come up when I had my eyes closed. Okay, so this came up again. So let me just explain a bit, and if it touches you, then it touches you. If it doesn't, then just disregard it and just look at it as it's good that other people have heard this. But if it touches something, and it's saying you can watch back and see if it touches you later. So so as we form into thinking, and as we form, I'm going to speak actually to everyone, not just down to you. So as we form, like our mental structures form, so like at the age of 2, 3, 4, and we begin to think in this separate way. What begins to form is this idea of that you are someone acting and what should happen and what shouldn't happen. And this is just a thought structure that builds in the human brain. It's not true, it's not right, it's not the perspective of life, it's just the way the human thinks. And you begin to pick up ideas from your parents and your environment of the way life should be and expectations. And there begins to be, I feel, in a lot of people, this unconscious anger against life, because you have these wants and these wants aren't given to you. And if you weren't identified, you wouldn't be able to register that. You wouldn't be able to, if you didn't think, if you were an animal, you wouldn't get what you wanted and it wouldn't even be noticed. It would just be the way it is. But because of the way we think as humans, we recognize that there is something else we could have. There is something better we can have. There is something we want and we don't get it. We don't receive it. And that creates this anger to a higher authority. Even though there is no higher authority, the way that our mind thinks is it creates a higher authority. It's like something else out there. There's something higher. And sometimes it goes on to people around us. But often I feel when people are deconstructing, they go through a phase of being angry towards God. And there is no God, but we're brought up in Christianity. So we have this higher being that is up there. And this anger and this hatred comes up, and it's really animalistic and raw. It's like it's something that your parents tried to stop you expressing when you began to express it as a child. So as your brain began to think and you got past 3 and you began to have these tantrums, your parents stopped you expressing that. Your parents kept pulling you back and punishing you every time you expressed the unfairness that you felt. Prior to the age of 2, you didn't have a concept of unfairness. You just responded. But then as these concepts of you and unfairness and something else evolved, you began to have these feelings like something higher than you was taking something from you. And then this rage formed, but the rage was not something you could express. It was you were told off, you were punished every time you felt it. So you began to swallow it, and it gets stored in the body, and it comes out in moments of extreme situations, in moments when you forget yourself. This rage comes out. You know, sometimes you can be in a relationship for many years, and then something happens, like you find out that they've had an affair or something really unfair happens, and then this animalistic rage comes, or there's something that you deeply love and it gets taken away, and then this rage appears, and it's really, really scary. And I'm not saying that you have this, Julia, I'm just trying to point to something that I'm sure everyone can relate to. And when you feel this anger, you're really afraid of it. You're afraid of losing control, you're afraid of being in trouble. I think mostly being out of control. And in a way, it's like there has to be a phase of that coming up. There was a phase that I went through of expressing anger and losing control, like a child and just having tantrums. And it scared me. I remember at the time I began to have dreams sometimes of understanding what it was like to be a murderer. Like, I didn't want to murder, but I could understand that innate rage that humans can feel when life doesn't go their way. And I could understand how particular circumstances could lead to that rage to any human being, that there was no evil and there was no good. There were circumstances that built on top of each other. And when this rage came out, I feel totally out of control, and it really scared me. And I was luckily in a safe environment where I could express it and I could experiment with it. And I could let it come and I could see it. And I would go out and I would hit the tree, or I would scream in the forest. Like, immense amount of anger and rage came out. And at the bottom of it, it felt very angry towards God, which is ultimately myself. But there was a lot of swearing at God. Like, that this is unfair. And it's not that it's true, because there is no God, but it's what happens when the divide happens, when thinking takes over to be real. Because the animal, like Khaleesi or dogs, they have no concept of fairness. Like, if they get given a cookie, the other one wants a cookie, but if it doesn't get it, it will look at you for a moment and then it forgets. Whereas the human stores all of that, because we have the concept of what's fair, we have the concept of you and me, and it's like internally we keep a tally. And so I feel like in the undoing, it's not that you need to do anything, but it's allowing, and it's not saying that this is for you, it might be for someone else that I'm saying this for, but it's like just allowing that to come if it comes. Like you were saying with the other feelings, that you just allow them to come up. It's not saying do it to someone, be rageful to someone, but if that rage starts, rather than pushing it away, just give it chance to try and express itself.
Can identify with that in the way that there is anger inside me, and I use it in an apparently productive way. It's turning out very productive for me. I use it to fuel my examination of myself without judging myself.
Yeah.
I use it to energize the mind, to look and to examine my belief system.
Yeah.
But it's not from a perspective of self-judgment.
Yeah.
It just acts as an energy to kind of contrast the thoughts more.
Yeah. Actually, anger without separation is a really productive feeling. Anger, they define anger in Chinese medicine like the fire burning wood. Like, it's really productive. It makes things happen. But when it's from separation, it's always got this victim quality to it. Like that you're victim to something. It's like that something's happened to you, whereas the dogs can't really perceive that something's happened to them. If you beat them, they're upset for that moment, and then they kind of forget, they're scared of the stick in the future, but they can't hold it against you. They can't feel that life has done something against them, because they can't think like that. Whereas because we can think like that, and because we believe our thoughts to be true, then that kind of manifests in our bodies, in our way of being. And I think it's something that in this breaking down, it's something that's very hard, because it really creates a feeling of being totally out of control and abandoned. If you let it out, you'll be abandoned in some way. So this is something that you can just explore. Like if the anger does come up, but it might not be there, but just explore if there's other feelings like that in there, because none of this is like you've got to do this or not do this, because there is nobody here. It's like an exploration of eating itself. It's like the less and less there's an unconscious identification, you just melt more and more into what's actually happening, and your natural way of being takes over. But if something does come up, then it's like I'm saying these words, and maybe that body the next time will explore that. But it's not really a prescription, because who could I prescribe to?
This ever-changing thing that appears to have a me in it somewhere, but that's ever-changing too, all the time. Not the same person I was this morning, and I'm not the same person I will be tonight. So continually transforming. It's quite an amazing fucking thing. It really is.
It sure is.
Thank you for your time, Lisa.
With pleasure. I think that was what the feeling was coming up on Sunday that I was wanting to express. But I don't know, I'm not saying that's right, and I'll have forgotten this pretty soon, so I'm not really holding it to you, because who could I hold it to? It's just words coming out.
As I say, I trust you as another organism like myself. I trust you because I think you. I here or in this mind, I have established you as somebody who has gone beyond self-perception. Whether that's true or not, I can't know. I can only know my own self-perception and expose honestly to you what I think and see what your response to that is.
Yeah.
And I will be back if I need you again.
Nice, thank you for calling.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, lots of love to you. Bye. So Julia, if you're still listening, somebody put, I won't say who it is, this is so bang on, enormous rage coming up here, totally get why terrorists act in this huge unconscious rage. Yeah, like the shooting over the weekend in America, because what's happened with that guy that did the shooting is that again and again and again his body has interpreted that humans have done something bad to him, have let him down, have hurt him, and so the shooting comes from this wanting to punish those that they see having hurt him. But it's not true. There isn't somebody that's hurt him. It's all misconceptions. Like, you wouldn't see a dog doing that. Like, a dog will attack because of its conditions and the way it's set up, but you wouldn't see a dog that wants to kill itself, it then takes out 50 or 55 humans before it kills itself. It's like that human wants to punish, whereas the dog, when it attacks, it doesn't want to punish. It's just got the feeling of attack coming up. And the reason the human wants to punish is because of the way we think. It keeps thinking that other humans have been unfair. And of course that's the way it's going to think, because at the moment we're living in an identified society, and the society is all about grabbing money for yourself, grabbing success for yourself, and being better than your neighbor, richer than your neighbor, more successful than your neighbor. And so your neighbor is not, it's not that they want to hurt you, but the neighbor's trying to get the money from you, and you're trying to get the money from your neighbor. I don't mean directly your neighbor, but I mean others. Like everybody's trying to have a piece of the cake in our society, and it's like our society, the way it functions, is an identified way. When there's no identity there, I don't think that we would live in a society like this. It's got great things, this society. The fact that I can be on YouTube talking about this now is amazing, and that I'm a woman, and that I don't have to just be having kids. I can do all these different things. It's amazing compared to what it has been and what it's come from, but there's still so much way to go. Like, nobody needs to go hungry. Nobody ever needs to have the feeling of being homeless, and most people in our society, even rich people, feel that all the time, and fear going hungry and fear being left out, and therefore they're constantly struggling to get and retain the money for themselves. And most of society is doing that. And I really appreciate it when I see somebody that's working in the world and not doing that. Like I love, like, so there's somebody that I really respect who created something, and without advertisement just made it available for people and made it available at a really fair price, and it went viral and they were really successful without advertisement. I love that. That really is inspiring, and this is the way it should be, that things are really appreciated for what they are. We're not sold that there's something lackful about us and therefore we need this. That's what most of the advertising is doing. I really respect it when somebody chooses not to use advertisement. I think that's really beautiful, but we're so used to that in our society. It's the norm. Everybody advertises themselves and everybody is saying this is going to complete you, this is the best product, rather than there just being an appreciation of a product and going towards it then, because everybody's fighting for the money. And then this is how we use too much of our resources and we destroy our environment. There's also good things about advertising, and the competition brings prices lower, but that doesn't seem like the right way to do it, or the intelligent way to do it. It's all mentalities. So you can understand why that guy wanted to kill humans before he killed himself, because he wanted to punish those that he'd seen hurting him. Every time he'd spent money, he might have felt like that. Every time someone didn't love him that he loved, and that he didn't get what he wanted, and that other people had power over him, his mind kept registering that, not because that's truth, but because that's the way we're taught to think in our society. Imagine if we didn't have a word of you and I. Imagine if we didn't have a word of unfairness, of victim, of hatred. Like, all these things are things that we've invented. They're not fact. Imagine, like, life and death. If we didn't have the words for this, we wouldn't experience that on the human level. It's just that our brains produce those thoughts, and that's what we think the world is, when it's not that. Like, imagine if we were taught that who we were and the world was infinite. We'd have such different perspectives on reality. I totally believe that identification comes with with thinking, or comes from thinking. But it is an energy identification, but it forms from having an intelligent brain, from the ability to be able to think the way we think, in opposites and this and that, in right and wrong and good and bad and you and I. And then we create all these thought patterns, and most people get stuck in the negative thought patterns because we're trying to not have those negative thought patterns. So in a way, we're attracting them by trying to avoid them. So we can feel rage about something, so we try to push that rage away, and the rage hums and vibrates, and then we kind of attract that because inside us we fear it, so there's too much attention on it. So is there anyone else that would like to call in and speak to me? I think we have enough time for one more person. I feel like speaking tonight. So just send a message. if you'd like to speak. So I'm not going to answer the written questions tonight. And remember, when you want to call in, so don't call in if you want to chat. Call in if you've got something you want to work with, or to talk about non-duality. And the non-duality part is that you are that which is always present, that never moves. You're not something that moves. You're not a thought, you're not a feeling, you're not an idea. I have to go to the toilet though. Everyone's like, hey Renate. And if you feel insecure about tuning in, if you feel insecure about calling in, then you can also change your name on Skype. So you have a different name that comes up on Skype, and then you can also just tell me to use a different name. Although I find that a little bit confusing. And if you wanted to call in next time, I'm sure you can even download like an app which puts your voice through something so you sound different. Hey Isabel. Hey. Hello? 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 I can't hear you. I think you have to do a Skype test. Hello? Yeah, I can't hear you. Sometimes what helps is if you quit Skype and open it up again, that sometimes fixes it. If not, do a Skype call test. I'll do that as well. That's... Hey Beth. Hello? Hello? Yeah, you need to test your Skype. Vadiotas. Thanks, Stella. So back to the thing that Julio said that keeps going around in my mind. So I'm going to just address that. Well, Vatios Tias. Sorry, sorts out his microphone. So Julio said, "I trust you as someone going beyond self, and I trust you." And he kept repeating, "I trust you," and I think that's really beautiful, and I think that needs to happen. While the deconstructing is happening, that the trust goes outside of yourself, because your self is deceptive. The separate self can be deceptive. But notice with trusting comes disbelieving. So you trust and you disbelieve as well. And notice, like, trusting is an idea, just like not believing is an idea, so not trusting is an idea. And it's something that we're taught, and it's really super practical. And I think that it's also an innate feeling as well, like whether to trust something or whether to not. And when it's that innate feeling, it doesn't come with the opposite. It's just very a momentarily thing. So when I'm speaking, there's a deep sense that what I'm saying has truth. But it doesn't come with any ideas, it's just in the moment. And then the trust that goes into time, that can be practical. You know, we need to work things out, whether to trust things or not. But when it goes in time, it's always got the possibility to change, that you trust someone and don't trust someone, and you trust someone, you don't trust someone. And this has lots of complications to it, because if you're an overly trusting person, then that's got problems. If you're an under-trusting person, then that's got problems. Really, the best thing to do is just go back to the moment. It's not having trust in someone. It's not having trust in something. It's in that moment whether it resonates. But that's complicated, because sometimes when something's being poked at, so if I poke at something, then on the surface there can come anger and frustration. But normally if there's anger and frustration and resistance, then there's something in that that's being true. That's being true, that is true. Like with Roger, my attitude towards Roger was not that I trusted that he was some enlightened being or something great or huge. Roger was one of my teachers. Is my attitude towards it was that just taking it moment by moment, and I could clearly see that he was doing a much better job at life than myself. From spending time with him, I could see that he was much more at balance and in flow with life. And I think that's the way Roger would encourage it, because I think that is a more balanced way to look at it, rather than to have this big idea about something. Because if you have a big idea about something, you're more than likely going to be let down as well. So it's more like coming back to what's actually happening. And I do think that, just on the side, that I am really, really wise and really sensitive and really accurate. And it's not me that's wise, it's just so much changed here from being that separate entity to not. I'm not saying that there can't still be old patterns that come up, old thinking patterns, but it's not so big, and they're just more like wisps of energy. But yeah, and you can judge that, and I think you can see that and you can sense that. I think you can sense that there is a general love when I speak, but I can't promote that, and I wouldn't say believe it. I would say just look at the whole of life as your teacher, that everything's teaching you what's not true. And if something hurts, then it means that more than likely you've got a resistance to it, and there's a lie that's being held when it really hurts and it lingers. And if you feel this resonance when I speak about non-duality, or someone speaks about non-duality and like love, then it's more than likely they're speaking from that empty place. But don't trust a person or a thing as such. It's life. Like, you trust life, all of it, that all of this is guiding you home. And it's not that eventually that trust will disappear, and then there will just be a flow with life, and you'll no longer need to trust life. You'll just be in sync with life. You'll see that you are life and that you never left home. But the way that I used to look at it was everything was guiding me home. Everything was a way to show me what wasn't true. And when you saw what wasn't true, all that was moving, then what was left was what was true. You know, if you trust in a guru, or you trust in a teacher, they're more than likely going to let you down, because you'll have ideas about what they need to be. It's like humans are humans. So there's many things from being on this path that I could tell you about, all different teachers, really famous teachers, that if you heard it, you would most probably just have such a different perspective on them. If you were open enough, then your mind maybe wouldn't judge them. But if you still believed that they had to be something, then maybe you would reject them. You've got to start looking not at the person as such that's speaking. It's like life is speaking through me, and you're listening not because of me, not because of you, but because that's what life is creating now. Life is what sets you free, not a guru. But I also see that people need humility towards the speaker. So in certain ways, like, don't use that as a way to try and push yourself above the speaker or better than the speaker. Like, be humble to the speaker as well. So happy to share with you. Thank you so much for your vibration, Lisa. That, of course, needs no words. Plain. Oh. I know that you're saying kisses, but I don't know what the first two were. Bois, bus. I've forgotten how you say that. But I know that says kisses, and the first two words, I'm not sure what they say. Hi Leonardo, did you want to call in? I am looking for someone to speak to. If you did want to call, please call again. I'm ready now. If that was a mistake, lots of kisses. It means lots of kisses. Plein de bus, bois, bus. Bus? No, that's not it. I've forgotten how you say it, but I know it. People say it to me often in French. Oh, I hope that is French. I'm pretty sure it is. But your name doesn't look French. Cathy. Bisous, bisous, that's it, bisous. Bisous. Very good French teacher. I am learning. If I'm going to become a resident here, I have to do a French test. So I'm learning. Can you feel that? Life is what you trust. That's the designation. You know, God, the sky is so beautiful. It's pink and blues. It's beautiful. You know, we're always looking for trust in humans. It's a sick mentality. Like, we're always looking for this human that we can one day trust, that we can one day see as this God, father or mother figure. And then our hearts are constantly broken because they do different things to what we envision. It doesn't mean they're wrong, but we envision that when we're sad, they come and hug us, and then they don't. And they've let us down, and then it builds inside the body. Life is what you trust. That everything is the perfect play. Everything you've ever done, everything that's ever happened is the perfect play. As you begin to see it like that, life begins to open up again. Who you truly are begins to shine through as you stop living in the delusion. It was a mistake. Thank you for giving so much. Oh, that's okay, Leonardo. With pleasure, with pleasure. Life always wants to give, always. Everything's always in a state of giving. It's so sad, the mentality that the human gets into. It begins to get into this mentality that life is always taking from me, and it fails to see that life is constantly giving. If it didn't remove things, it couldn't give new things, but it's all mentality. And this person gets addicted to that and gets afraid of it, and none of it's true. Just see it's not true, and who you are is this empty looking and this alive presence, which is love. As that begins to be seen as not true, the stories, then there's a movement back to that alive presence, that pure being of who you are. Hello?
Hello.
It works, yay!
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I
But you have
even
to,
see myself.
yeah, you have to turn off
That's-
the YouTube though, because I can hear it.
Yeah, you have to turn off the YouTube though, because I can hear it.
Okay, maybe it's better now. I'm very surprised I called myself. I'm quite a shy and I called.
Nice. Good on you.
It's strange. Maybe I should talk about my not shyness, but how it suddenly everything gets bad. And like today, it was a very good day, and I watched this video, and suddenly sensation in the body, like this related to an accident I had many years ago, and I began feeling paralyzed. Well, I have some symptoms like it's it's not quite as it was, but and there is a lot of I've even studied types, psychological types. My like when I physically feel bad, I feel so bad psychologically.
And is this physically something wrong with you from this accident?
First, yes, were just a disaster, but my life a few years before that was also not very good. I had very much sadness, and just before this accident, 1.5 years, I met this tradition, and spiritual tradition, and they really good groups, and but I started getting very much involved, and my life changed so much, and
Did we speak before about this?
I told you once on the session.
Yeah, no, I remember, yeah.
And I sold pictures on the street, and I was like mad into it, and I covered all my sadness, and suddenly I learned to communicate with people and everything, and it was so much good the first half a year, and the second half a year I stuck. I couldn't even tell myself how it was. I was hiding from so much truth from myself and my teachers too, and there was a big disappointment, and my parents, and controlling my parents. I was hiding everything from my parents because they would not allow me. I knew it from before. And then this accident happened, and life after that was just a disaster. I was like a zombie living like 5 years. I got married, I worked, and it was survival. It was survival in the society.
Yeah.
Maybe not always, we don't know how it was actually, but and slowly it's getting better and better and better. But I still divide it like everything is fine, and then even after meditation and really good things, and then it comes contrast, and
You're totally seen.
what did you say?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, sorry about that.
like I felt, oh wow, it's again this, and how people think about me. Maybe they think I'm stupid, I'm some mentally underdeveloped or something, and that might be true, by the way, because the beginning of this career I was very shy. I was shy, and
Okay, so let's go for more like what's happening now, because we could get lost in that story for ages. So what's happening inside you now? What do you feel now, right now? Because that's all that's important, is what's happening now.
But to tell you the truth, I feel nothing wrong now. It was short. It was very short. Just,
You feel nothing wrong now.
getting
That's
just
so
brave
sweet.
calling, and then
Yeah.
it was maybe too soon to call.
So you feel good now?
Yes.
So we don't need to do anything.
I'm walking. I would actually, it's unconscious, but I was meditating very much lately, and I got this fire flower working again, and I became so much stronger and so much better.
That's nice. And what do you feel right now?
I feel my palms are wet, and I feel shivering in my legs, shivering in my chest.
Because you're nervous?
Pardon?
From nervousness or from joy?
Just nervousness, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it.
Yeah. And what else is being felt? Can you feel this alive presence that you are, this is?
I think so.
And that there's this empty looking?
No, not empty.
Who's looking then?
I don't know. Well, thank you very much anyway.
Oh, that's a pleasure. The only thing that's important is what's actually happening. That's the only thing that's important. You can just let go of your story, of the accident, I remember you telling me last time, and the problems, and just come back to what's happening and see that that's a mental habit that's formed in the brain. The story
I think about
forms
it every day, actually.
Yeah, it's formed in your brain, and it's actually because inside you're feeling those feelings and your brain attaches to that story. So just acknowledge the feelings, acknowledge the story's not true, and then see that there is this alive presence. There's most probably a trauma there as well. There's also a book that you could read called Waking the Tiger that might help you release the trauma. But you've got to see that the most important thing, the only important thing is aliveness, is this sense of being and this empty looking, and that is home. And that anything you tell yourself, any mental construct that you have, isn't it. This is it. And there has to be such conviction in that this is it, this is freedom. Time isn't freedom, stories aren't freedom, and you're never going to solve a story. So inside your body, from that story, there must be a feeling that keeps evolving, of being out of control, of feeling like you lost something, or a fear of time, and just acknowledge that feeling, and then see the thoughts that are around it, and then see that there is presence, and that presence is freedom, not fixing that story.
Yeah, I was listening, but I sure didn't.
Sorry?
I heard everything you told me, but I was shivering all the time.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens in the body, when it's changing, it does different things. It shivers or it shakes. So just let it happen. Because it is the illusion, the separate self is something that is an energetic appearance in the body. And it's something that gets released from the body. But then that which is released, your presence, your beingness, has never actually really been caged. It's always been everywhere. It's just that illusion's made it seem like there's somebody locked inside the body. So the release of the seeking separate self can sometimes be a very bodily thing. Like it is an energetic expansion back into nothing. Or everything.
Yeah, thank you.
With pleasure. It's nice to speak with you again.
Thank you.
Bye. Lots of love. Bye. Hey guys, So just shut out chat, because I know there's people being rude. That's part of our society, and normally male repressed anger. I would like to say that it's a female that's saying all that stuff on the chat, but it's not. It just isn't. It's just, it comes from an energy of feeling overwhelmed by things I'm saying, so there's a wanting to debunk that and make it smaller. It could be by a woman in power, or they perceive in power, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But just big it so you ignore it. So if you big my picture, you ignore the chat. I would love to stop chat, but if I stream from YouTube on my iPad, I can't block chat. So you guys have got the joy of seeing all these comments, or not if you make your screen bigger. But it's a form of violence what he's doing. And I, like lunatic, I would just be aware, you know, everything that you do on the internet is traceable, and that is a form of verbal violence, which one day, you know, you never know what our governments are going to do with the information that they gather from the internet, and that can be traced back to you. Even if you think you're really clever and they can't trace it back to you, they can. So yeah, I would just be very aware to everyone about using the internet. We don't know what our governments are using all this information for, and that is a form of violence. It's not punching someone, but it's a form of verbal violence and bullying. But I'm the same. Yeah, if we get like a really extreme government in like Donald Trump, he might decide to kick out all non-duality speakers, or all speakers that don't preach Christianity. So I'm the same. I'm most probably the first one that gets axed by the government. But yeah, there's no excuse for verbal violence, though. I mean, obviously there is, because it's just a happening, but in the relative world, there's not an excuse for it. It's not okay to do it, that's what I'm saying. Just because we're talking about this subject and going beyond barriers, I sometimes think that, like in some way, the non-dual community or some forms of non-duality excuse it and say that's okay, and it's really not okay. It's okay to say no and say that that's not okay. That's part of it happening as well. Sometimes people get into the mentality that the human has to be like, yes, 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 and that's enlightenment. A constant state of yes. If I had to live in a constant state of yes, I would, yeah. I would, in one way you are in a constant state of yes, but on the human level you're not in a constant state of yes. Okay, but anyway, maybe YouTube will change it soon so I can ban the chat. I can't see the chat, I ban it on my computer so I can't see it, but somebody just sent me a message saying someone was being really rude in the chat box. Yeah. So thanks guys, I love you. Lots of love. Bye. Oh, and I will be streaming this Sunday. So I think it's Wednesday, I was away last weekend, so there is a stream this Sunday. Okay, bye guys.